We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Alien Spaceship stream. You could be watching from anywhere around the country or the world, and I really appreciate it. Coming to you from the Spaceship Studios from a galaxy far, far away. And tonight we are going to talk about some more updates with the news and the war going on, and the other eclectic things that we talk about. And now what I'm going to do is switch over so everybody can see me. Hello everybody, welcome to the stream. I hope everybody's having a good week, a good Sunday, a good weekend. And now we will be getting into some of these different topics and things. Going to switch over right now. Alright. Alright, hello, here I am. It's me, Alien Spaceship. And now what I'm going to do is see about I'm going to do the game while I do the commentary on things in the beginning, and then we'll get into the other stuff that as the stream progresses. If something doesn't go right with the game, we will just go right into reading some different things. Alright, so here we go. Alright. Alright, so now the game is launching as we usually play. Alright, so when it launches we'll be switching over to that. And so yesterday we talked about when it happened, Iran was struck by the United States with, which everybody knows this now, with the nuclear plants, or whatever they are, were struck. And there's debate about if they were completely destroyed or not. And this has caused debate in the UN, was saying that their heat sensors do not see complete destruction like the claims are. Now, I know that they hypothetically could destroy them completely, but for whatever reason, they are still salvageable. Whatever is there is salvageable, or hanging in there. Alright, so going there. Okay. Alright, so, and this is the spooky island that we were on before, by the way. Yeah, so anyway, so they weren't completely destroyed, and they're saying that they could rebuild them, and Iran is promising to do a counter-strike somewhere. You know, they're not saying exactly where, but, you know, there might be some military bases. They might be hitting them. It could be, hopefully not the U.S. homeland, but it could be places in Israel. It could be anywhere. So the situation is escalating, and there is a colorful opinion through the different politicians have colorful opinions about it on both sides. You have some that are praising it, saying it was, or that was necessary. Some people think that there was no other way. Other people think that there was completely no other option and they had no choice. Others think that it could have been avoided and they didn't have to do that, and it's going to cause a greater conflict. So you have these different groups, groups and individuals speaking their mind about it. Also, world leaders have talked about it too. There's a mixed reaction. It seems quite the majority wants this. I think everybody would like to see this end. And there's dispute about if Iran was going to do a strike or build a nuclear weapon to try to hit Israel or the United States. There's, mass debate about it. Some people think that the West was trying to incite something. Other people think that Iran was trying to do something bad too. And hello, Miranda. Good to see you. And Miranda says people who sympathized with Palestine and Iran have increased terrorism levels and couldn't imagine considering October 7th. Yeah, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, and the people who are sympathizing with Palestine and Iran have increased terrorism at levels we couldn't even imagine considering October 7th. Yeah, and I hope that the terrorism does stop. And nobody wants to see that. And across different religions and different spectrums, people don't like to see terrorism because it's just a bunch of hate. And as we go on in this stream, we'll have people with different views and stuff to talk their point. And thank you, Miranda, for coming in here and saying that. Thank you. And as I said, hopefully it could all stop. I'm very happy, and this is what I voted for. And hello, because they need to be gone off the earth, sadly, for what they have done to their own children alone. And now there's people in Iran that do not like the actions of their own government. That they're saying that they want the people there don't like it. Their own government. Now, some people are saying it's similar to when there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but there wasn't. Also, people are skeptical of regime change, and so there are both. So on both sides are weighing in on it, but with the increase in terrorism is not good, and that must end. And I hope and pray that this conflict can be resolved at some point, however it's resolved, in a peaceful manner. And we all have to be, all the different cities in the country are on high alert because of Iran could do something to the United States possibly. We have to wait and see what's going to happen. But yeah, so it is different, as I said, on both sides. There's different people that are commenting on this, and world leaders and stuff like that. So it is quite intriguing to see this unfolding. It's basically, I think, the closest we are to World War III. And Miranda says, hello, yes, I think a main source of stopping their regime was what Trump had done. We had many chances to be annihilated. Right? And if the sovereignty of the United States or the West is threatened, they do what they have to do to protect it. Because, you have countries that might be lurking that are trying to cause us destruction, and then what we have to do is, defend ourselves. Other people are arguing. The people are arguing these different points about, like the news and stuff is being afraid. And Miranda was saying, I would also like to say that the news that is saying that they're afraid of Iran now, I would like to say, well, what are they going to do now that we destroyed their mass weapons of destruction in them? Right. Yeah, as I said, I think it is a wake-up call, and if Iran was trying to do something to the country, it did not work too well. And then there's people on the other side that are saying that the Americans are trying to be an aggressor. And it's like, as I said, people think that, or people think that they're trying to do imperialism into Iran. But if the country really felt that there was something, they're trying to build a weapon against us, they did what they had to do. But as I said, I am glad to see what everybody has to say about it. But yeah, I do think it's good to have peace through strength. It's important. All right, and it looks like the ships need to be repaired. So we're going to do that right now. All right. And this is Cuba, by the way. And speaking of Cuba, in the game we're in Cuba. So in Cuba, the Cuban president, they're condemning what Trump did. Venezuela, of all places, was condemning it. China thinks that America is making a strategic error because they did this before in the Middle East and the campaigns don't really work. And I do hope it doesn't escalate into a broader conflict, into a broader issue in the country of where it will last for 20 years or so. So hopefully but if they do what they have to do, but hopefully it doesn't escalate any further to that point where it lasts for years and years. Miranda says Iran, Hamas, ISIS, the Houthis have made it clear that they hate America and they chant our end, and now they're been ended. That is true, and Iran sees America as the great Satan. So, yeah, they do have these different groups that do that. You're right. So, we had to defend ourselves, especially they're trying to build a nuclear weapon. They claim it was a nuclear research or something, but, whatever it was, they have to defend the West against these things. And also we're getting close to 4th of July during the patriotic time, and I think it's good to rekindle the country's flame. And what we do is look at what what two different sides are saying, and then we could refute things as we usually do, Miranda, as we refute different arguments of different people and stuff, and you do very well with that. So there are people that think that we should remain neutral and not get involved in the different conflicts. But now, sometimes people doing this will only cause more problems if something's not done about it, especially if a country is going to strike us first. They would have to do what they can. We don't know what the intelligence has gathered in these different situations, what they've gathered. We have to stand behind the country and defend itself against anything that could be threats, foreign or domestic. Iran has said that they not only hate Christians, but mainly Jews, and they will go far lengths to destroy their lives and those people who won't bow to Allah Assad. And also, now, there are different... Oh, the game distracted me for a second. Yeah, and I hear you, Miranda, and the people in Iran that are thinking that are quite extreme with their view and their take on it. Now, Israel has many troops that are Muslim that are not like that are supporting and fighting for Israel. Now, as we know, there are different types of people that interpret things differently, and it seems that Iran has more of a distorted interpretation of their religion. So that is unfortunate. That I'm aware, Miranda, of what they think in Iran, but it is quite unfortunate that they have that extreme view. It's unfortunate that they have the extreme view that they have. So, and there's other countries like Saudi Arabia, for instance, that have problems with Iran too. And I think with different regimes that took over Iran, that caused these different extremist ideas to infiltrate their country. And there seems to be people on both sides, on Israel and Iran, that don't want the war, like the people themselves in the countries. Because at the end of the day, the people suffer. And I think that anybody that's preaching this type of hatred completely needs to be, not in power functioning like this. Yeah. So, a very good point, Miranda. Thank you. Now, I know about stuff from Israel from when I was at the summer camp when I was growing up. And everybody in Israel, the men and the women, are all in the military. So, like, they all have to be in it. And also, I think that it's very... And I met soldiers that were from Israel when I was growing up, by the way, at the summer camp that I went to. And they're very nice people. And yeah, men and women both have to be in the army. And Miranda says, thank God Saudi Arabia and Qatar said this was peaceful and accepted the U.S. Yeah, because Saudi Arabia, Trump went over there and he did a very good job with the Saudis and those different countries, and that's good that they want to be an ally of ours, because they don't all think the same way. There's different countries that think different, things. And I do like to to see our country diplomatically get along with as many people as possible. But those that hold like extremist views, they need to not be in power. And if they do anything, it will be met with force. So, for instance, when Christianity was new in its infancy, there's different parts of Christianity that interpreted things incorrectly and they did things that weren't right. There's different violence and stuff that happened. But overall, as time went on, God has blessed us with more of a collective view of how it is supposed to be. So sometimes when these people, they'll use the religion to justify their actions that they probably would have done anyway. So we have to be aware of people like that. And Miranda says, the USA, America, and the IDF soldiers, warriors, we stand with Israel forever. Bible says it is the navel of the earth, it's sacred, and where Jesus Christ was alive and walked and did miracles. Amen. Amen. And also, with Israel, it is the Holy Land and is where Jesus did many miracles and the prophets existed. And at the right time, may God bless them that they can understand the sacrifice that Christ made, because there are Jews that have not accepted Christ as the Messiah, but in time I do hope and pray that they eventually will see his truth and Jesus will return to Israel and they will see that it's him. Now, the Jews had a history of not always being a little bit, let's call a stiff-necked people, hard-headed. This is why they didn't accept Christ when he was there. But it doesn't mean they're not the chosen people still. And God still blessed them, and there's a state of Israel there, as God promised them there would be. And, oh, hello, Mary. Good to see you. And at the right time, I believe that they will accept him. So, either way, though, God's promise is irrevocable. And God's promise is irrevocable, and he will bless the Jewish people because that is what he promised them to do, that he would do that. Regardless if they accepted Christ or not, but they will eventually accept him because Jesus will return to the Mount of Olives. And yes, hello, Mary Toodles. It is great to see you. Welcome. And Miranda says, in Revelation, we all will be gathered around Israel. Amen. Absolutely. And yeah, and then there will be an antichrist that will come, that will deceive, unfortunately, the people of Israel and the world. We have to be watched for that. But it doesn't mean the Israeli people be condemned. It's just there'll be a confusion. But Jesus will come and defeat the antichrist, and Jesus will rule from Israel as his promise that he will do. And they will see it's the Messiah, because the thing that they got wrong was that they didn't understand that there's a spiritual salvation, that we had to be delivered spiritually, and there's a kingdom of heaven, but he will return to earth and save earth too. It's just that the sacrifices that they did in ancient Judea, where they sacrificed the ox, the doves, and the different lambs and stuff, it was for the atonement of sins, and then Jesus would be the final sacrifice on the cross, according to our Christian faith. And they didn't quite get that, but that's okay. But he will return and restore their nation, and the world will be a peaceful place. There'll be no more death or mourning. And Islam does accept that Jesus is the Messiah. They have a different view of Jesus than we do, but they still believe he's the Messiah, and that's pretty cool. But the world will accept Christ, and every knee will bow, and his divine mission to return. Because there is, the Logos, that's what Jesus is. He is as God in the flesh, as we believe. And he will come and make the world a peaceful place. But in the times of the end times, there will be wars and rumors of wars that will occur. And that's what we're in right now, basically. And a lot of the end times revolve around the war between Israel and the nations that will try to go against it. So it'll be important for us to pray and keep close to God in these dark times. And it's good to have, although then people are trying to say that Trump said he wouldn't cause another war, but he caused another war. But it was, it wasn't him. It was different. Yes, amen, Miranda. It was different actions that led up to this. So you had actions that happened in the past where Hillary gave these she gave them uranium, and Obama gave them some more Iran some more stuff, and Joe Brandon unfroze their accounts, and they got millions and millions of dollars. So it wasn't. Oh, hello, Mary. Thank you for the angel face and the donation. I appreciate you. So that is what occurred with the past presidents and administrations. It wasn't the Orange Man that instituted this. It was things that happened before that. You know, because he was trying to make peace with everybody, but not everybody wanted peace, and people in our own country that sold us out, didn't do it right either. Yeah. Now, I do think that there are people that are misguided about this with the news and the media, and it's important to do what we can to help others see a different point of view, because I think the media has done a good job at brainwashing people about it, about what was going on with these different conflicts. Oh, Gooby the cat says hello. Well, shout out to Gooby the cat. Hello to Gooby the cat. That is very sweet of that cat. Shout out to all the kitties, the spaceship cats. All right, he got that nice moon, and then we're gonna go after some more ships in the Caribbean. Okay. And also something to remember is that there was times throughout history where the Jewish people were persecuted and God delivered them. Like there's Egypt, there were the Romans and the Nazis and also the Soviets too, to some extent, at some point. And every time they came out of it, because his calling is irrevocable and his promise is irrevocable. So I think that whoever were to unjustly go against Israel will not succeed. Miranda said that he's currently begging for some wet food and he's been too spoiled and he needs to stop. LOL. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And also today I was looking at something where there are many, because there's the media will also lie about something where they think that it's like an Islam versus Judaism thing. And now my theory was that that wasn't true, and I was right. So, like I said a moment ago, just kind of go in more detail about it. There's many like people and judges and officials in Israel, and people in the military especially, that are living in Israel that are Muslim, that are that are supporting Israel and that are part of the country. So that is something where the media, I think, and social media also, more specifically social media, would get that wrong. It's the country of Iran, regardless of whatever religion or whatever they are, versus Israel, but they may be using or perverting religion to justify their actions because, like they'll talk about violent verses and stuff a lot, but also it says that in Islam, if they delete a person, it's as if they delete all of humanity, but then they'll focus on other verses to justify their cause. Like if there's like a war or something going on, they go, oh, this was from this can justify what we're doing. So it's like kind of people that are perverting it and taking it out of context, and because that's what people will do. So that was something I want to point out, because the social media and the media will have misconceptions about these things, because people don't have to support Israel, but it's not like a religious thing, it's a land dispute, in my opinion, more. And then Randa says, LMAO, no more wet food. I'll give him a few more, but now he needs to get to adult food. Now, actually, cats of all ages eat wet food. Claude, for instance, prefers wet food over any other kind of food. And that is something we when we feed the cats, we feed them wet food. Like some cats like wet food, some cats don't like wet food. Some cats just like hard food. So it depends on the cat. But yeah, it would be. I could see why a younger cat would do good with the wet food, and then but it needs to grow up to adult food. That's true. And shout out to the kitty. I always like cats that sometimes Bubbles, he likes to talk, and he likes to try to get his food too. He hustles us as well. Now, like it's good that we have allies in the Middle East because in that area we have an influence in the region. Like if something were to go wrong, and then some people argue that Israel struck them first, and yeah, usually it's kind of like somebody's like starting a fight first, but they either knew through like say like October 7th, they really like were hyper focusing and monitoring everything because they didn't see that incident about to happen. So they must be very closely watching different things. Maybe they know something about these nuclear projects that they're able to see something or know, or at least suspected that something was not right with the what Iran's trying to do. Hello, Eric. Good to see you, buddy. And Eric says my cats eat purina out indoor cat food, but they are in and out cats. Oh, yeah. Shout out to you, Eric. Good to see you, buddy. And yeah, and basically, what the cats will do is they will go and not many. We don't really have cats right now that go in or outside. There's cats outside to just stay outside that want to just be out there, and cats that come inside. They're just inside permanently. But we do have an outside enclosure. Yeah, nice dono, Mary. Yes, yes, she did. So with the cats, I understand what you're talking about. Like my buddy, he has a cat that comes inside and comes outside, but ours either just stay outside or stay inside, or we bring them in sometimes permanently. They don't just like come in and out, but that's pretty cool that you're able to do that with your cats where they come in and out. But we do have cats that come out of nowhere that live somewhere else, but they come over here to eat. So it's kind of like that, but that's pretty cool that your cat's like pure Purina. Claude likes to eat that kind of stuff. Because Claude will come at night and I'll feed him. Like sometimes when I'm watching Smoke and Scan, he'll come and creep up on me and I'll go feed him while I'm watching the show. Like I have the phone in one hand and the food in the other hand to give to the cat. So that's always funny when the cat just kind of comes out of nowhere. He knows right where to go. And it's interesting that cats don't need GPS or anything. They just know where to go. Animals have a lot of superpowers. And I really appreciate the animals with superpowers. How they're able to do things that humans might have a difficult time doing. Scurvy Shallows. What an interesting name. And as I said, the world leaders everywhere are reacting to this. And the United States just asked China to blockade in the Persian Gulf. No, it wasn't Persian Gulf, but it was around there where they were asking them to blockade some of the ships coming in. We'll see if China does it. My lovely mouse. Lovely mouse. Oh, okay, that's why. Okay, the mouse switch turned itself off because I it accidentally swiped itself, but it's all good. It's all good. All right. All right, and we get that one. All right, so my mouse is working again, so it's all good. Yeah. So, and then Netanyahu made his commentary about the strike. I thought it was very, he did a very good job. And Israel was very clever how they got America involved. It was very interesting. And I think it's good to see the different ways, there's psychological tricks and maneuvers that Israel will use to get us involved in these different things. And like there's, I said, two different points of view. You have one side saying that like Iran, calls America the Great Satan, and I feel that they have a misinterpretation of their religion, or they're using their religion to justify their actions that they would have done anyway, if even if they're like an atheistic state or they were still worshiping the Zoroastrianism. So Zoroastrianism kind of has to do with Abrahamic religions, but it predates it. But it's not really what we are, or they would have believed in some paganism of some kind. Whatever they would have believed. Like, for instance, Persia, Iran is Persia, and Persia attacked Sparta, Greece. The 300 movie. So the before Islam, they always did stuff like this. It always happened. But so they would have figured out some way to justify it. Like, so they're doing that, and they've called, now America is not perfect. I do believe America has done things that weren't right, and there are some countries that think that we've not done them right, and America does have maybe some issues here and there, but it doesn't mean that you have to go and genocide the United States or saying it's completely evil. That's not right. So, but either way, though, they want to take an extreme measure. So they call the America the Great Satan, and they want to have, and they're using violent interpretations from their religion to justify their actions. And then you have now Saudi Arabia, for instance, does not really get along with Iran, so it's not just like they're not like all on the same side. It's like in their own regions they have problems in the Middle East. They have issues all over their region. So that is happening, and then they're having this program when they're trying to construct some nuclear weapon allegedly. Now there was this incident where they want to make weapons of mass destruction, but there wasn't mass destruction weapons in Iraq. And there's Gaddafi, and there's these different leaders that were toppled over, and then worse things happen. So people fear it's a regime change. People think that it's a false flag, and you have this conflict that is arising with that. People on both sides are weighing in. So is Iran just doing nuclear research? Is it a nuclear power plant? Do they feel that they're trying to do self-defense, or like how does America can dictate who can have a weapon and who can't? But at the same time, from the other point of view, there's a very strong suspicion that they're going to use their weapons to go against the West because of their, as I said, it doesn't matter what religion they would have believed in, they were going to do this anyway, because it's how for thousands and thousands of years Persia has had ambitions. As I said, it's up for the viewer to interpretate their opinion about it. I'm just giving all the different perspectives on it. So, and Eric said, I think Iran is going to strike back with terrorism. Oh, yeah. In my opinion, I think we're going to begin to see what's going to happen. Now, the big cities and the capital is on high alert, because there are fears about what they're going to do exactly. Now, one time the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was saying how if Iran got a nuclear weapon, they're going to need a nuclear weapon. They didn't trust, Iran. But so, as I said, it's like people think, especially with less with the media, but more with social media, it's not a problem with the different religions, but it's more of a problem with the countries like beefing with each other, and there's the Sunni versus Shia, and they don't agree on anything because you have the Shia that believe that there's an imam that's a descendant of Prophet Muhammad that they need to follow, and they get very, so whoever is that descendant they'll listen to, and the Sunni believe that whoever is right for the job should be the imam, the leader of it. So the imam is like the religious leader. So, whatever the person thinks, like say like in Christianity we have this same type of situation where there's the Pope, the descendant of, not direct biological descendant, but a spiritual descendant of Peter to govern the Church of Rome, and other people that believe that it should be a pastor or whatever, or the individual church to decide who will govern the Christian people. So you have the same type of schism in Christianity too. And Eric says Iran has all oil they need for energy. They have bad motives with nuclear. Understood, Eric. Yeah, now America, it's good with Trump. It's a good thing where they have a situation where you can have America's oil too. So it's good that we can at least drill our own oil. Because the other guys turned off for pipelines, and if we had the cackling witch in office, I mean, it would not be too good for us right now. She probably would have done the same thing, I guess. I don't really know, but it's just kind of goofy. But yeah, so we will see what they do, because they're going to do something. Because they are angry. They are furious. They have anger beyond comprehension. They're fuming right now. And they might try to attack our bases overseas. And overseas, that will also cause us problems. I will say it is a bold move. I pressed the wrong button, so they were able to get me. But, I was trying to get the window out, but I didn't. I was pressing the wrong buttons. Alright. Back to Raven's Cove. And, for the neighboring countries that are watching this, it's like people are just outside or doing their own thing. And they see all these ships, these airships, and these rockets flying back and forth. It's like the hood. I guess that's why they call it the war zone. Because, it's like the hood. Alright, so we're going to escape the island of spooks. But I guess I'll show Eric for a moment. I'll show Eric for a moment what I'm talking about here. So, anyway, I'm back now. So, we're going to go back this way and show Eric. This is the spooky island, the zombie island. This is the haunted island, rather. So, you have the moon right there. The moon up high. Demons, pixels, black fairies lurking. This island was destroyed by some haunted pirates. And this is like California, alright? You see, you got this guy who's a crackhead right here. And he's scared. Crazy Ned. You got all this stuff being destroyed. And over there, that's a spook. That's a phantom right there. It'll instantly delete me if I go by it. That's the phantom. Look, all this stuff's like destroyed. It's just like a riot happened, and they didn't repair anything. Yeah, it's an abandoned island right here. All right, going this way. These are some ghosts in here. These are some ghosts. You see, like, you could say these people got attacked by Iranian pirates. Yeah, see, it's all like destroyed. It's all ransacked, just like how LA is, and the different like homeless people and stuff. Yeah, it's quite wild. All right, like, see, look, this thing will instantly delete me. A somber end for me. See, and it deleted me right there. Scared. And we are certainly going to, in a moment, we'll be looking at updates about what's happening at the moment. All right, so you got a skeleton bro right there. We're going to be kicking out. Yeah, but now Iran and Israel at one time were friends, were allies in the very beginning. But then there's some power shifts that happened and it changed. Okay, so we're gonna go in here, go out this way. We're just gonna go to Cuba. All right. Now, I'm gonna show you all this cave. That's this mining cave. It kind of has to do what we were talking about one time. But yeah, so and Iran is rich with oil. It is certainly lucrative with oil. And I do wonder how that will play a role in this conflict, in the interest in this conflict. So many people, and I do think that oil and gas and all that stuff is going to go up. Everything's going to go up because of this conflict. Although it comes from here, it'll still go up regardless. And there has been many casualties. Many casualties. On both sides, and a lot of the times, as I said before, that it's the people that really lose out on this. It's the people that get their homes destroyed and everything destroyed from them. And it's like, it'd be nice if the world leaders could just, do some, play some chess and just call it a day. But it doesn't. It's not that simple. Now, I do wonder if there's distractions from the war in Ukraine, because that has not been talked about really. We have to see what's going on with that one. And they might do some terrorism against us. They might try to launch something at us. We have to see what they do, because there's people that are homegrown. There's people that are in the country that will do stuff like that. So hopefully that doesn't occur, but it's a possibility. I like the graphics in the game, how they were able to have the smoke effect. Oh wow, I rammed right into that ship. Wow. Okay, and so seeing and different commentators think that we don't gain anything by striking Iran. Yes, Mary, everything's secure. Everything's going well. We're having a good conversation about the war. Hello, Aaron. Great to see you. Just saying quick hello, hit the like, Monica Monday tomorrow. I've never been so excited to watch a woman get sentenced. Oh, I'm excited too. I can't wait. I'm throwing a party over it. Yay! Yeah, we are talking about the war in the Middle East and seeing just different opinions that people have about it. All opinions are welcome. And, open debate. It always has a good, dialogue. And Aaron, I hope that you've been having a good weekend and look forward to seeing you tomorrow at the trial. I'm I'm glad to see some toothpaste, it'll be a toothpaste day. Toothpaste lady will be sentenced. I'm scared. Oh, Lord. Thank you, Miranda, for the update. Miranda says breaking news. Ariana Grande condemns Trump, calling for his impeachment again with multiple Democrats. Scared. Yeah, see her in jail. Yeah. with, yeah, uh, with Monica. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Miranda, a lot of these people that are misguided are going to do that. It's really unfortunate that they're doing that. Yeah, right on, Miranda. Yeah, this is the cave. This is, and Miranda, this is kind of like the back rooms. This is a mine where they mine for emeralds and jewels and stuff like that, and gold and silver. And this is a lot of the back rooms. Oh, thank you, Aaron. Very sweet. You have a good evening. Good night. Amen, Miranda. May God protect all of them. Amen. And the people suffer. And the good people suffer. In these different regions. It really sucks. All right, so you have this. It looks very red, like a red room. Huh? Scared. All right, and there you are. Do shoveling. Oh, you see, I showed you this before. Okay, that's awesome. All right, and then Miranda says you love the ocean and the moon. Oh yeah, yeah, it's very nice in this game. Okay, yeah, and it's like my backrooms. I've like when I was a kid. I'd say when I was a young in 2019 and also in 2010 and 2013 when I played it back a few years ago, I used to just get lost and just wander these for hours, like with you in the pool rooms. Yeah, it's so intricate, and there's all these cool enemies to fight. Like right here, you have this one, Navy veteran, but and as I said, we are going to go to updates about Iran in a moment. We are, and You know, what I've done for a while is playing the game again, and people enjoy it on the stream, so it's like a win-win situation. So yeah, that's the lava. It's so cool to watch the lava roam. Yeah, and then these enemies, they used to be difficult for me, but now I achieved level 47, so that's pretty cool that I achieved that level in the game. Yeah. Level 29 sword. I like to train the different weapons. Yeah, like I'll say with this game, the visual effect is so fascinating, so fascinating. All right, and this is the dagger that I've been training with to practice this. Oh, the character's stunned. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. All right. Yeah, so the visual effects in the game are very cool. The nature of it. Okay. Now let's get into the updates. All right, let's go to live updates. And thank you, Miranda, for the updates that you told us. All right, so here we go. Trump directed staff to announce 2 week window to conceal Iran attack plan, sources say. President Donald Trump has been leaning heavily toward taking U.S. military action in Iran for several days when he issued a directive to his senior aides tell the press that he would make a decision on whether to act within 2 weeks as a way to obscure his true thinking. The president had been frustrated by coverage that suggested that he had made the final decision on striking Iran nuclear sites, and he thought a 2 week timeline could throw off Iranians and conceal his plans, according to several sources familiar with what happened. Trump made the call to issue a statement Thursday as he was set to have lunch with his former advisor, Steve Bannon, who had been publicly skeptical of the U.S. involvement shortly after his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, walked into the White House briefing room and followed the president's orders, signaling the world that Trump's mind wasn't made up yet. While the final call came Saturday, as bombers were already in the air, those around Trump believe his mind had been largely made up for days regarding taking action in Iran. Trump had been briefed on attack plans already and was meeting with his senior national security aides in person on daily basis, in addition to having multiple phone calls throughout the day. All right. Iran activates air defense over Tehran. No, Tehran. All right. Iran again activated air defense over its capital in Tehran in the early hours of Monday, according to semi-officials Iranian media outlet Mir news agency. It comes as Iran launched a missile at Israel earlier Monday, which was intercepted by the country's air defense, according to Israeli official. Israeli military says Iran has launched new wave of missiles at Israel. Israel Defense Force IDF says a new wave of Iran missiles has been launched toward Israel. Quote, a short while ago, sirens sounded in several areas across Israel following the identification of missiles launched from Iran toward the state of Israel. In a statement from the IDF, the military instructed the public to enter shelters and said defense systems were operating. A spokesperson for Magen David Adom, Israel's National Emergency Medical Service, said it hadn't received any calls to their hotline about falls or injuries, quote, with exception of cases of anxiety and people who were injured on the way to a protected area. Well, I'm sure the people there are very nervous because there's not really anywhere for them to go. It's, you know, I remember when I was a kid learning in this class about Israel, it was like the Israel's like the size of New Jersey. It's very small, and there's not really. It's not like America where you could just go evacuate somewhere. It's, you know, you're kind of like stuck in a little island, but it's not an island. It's like a little sliver of land. A spokesperson of, I said that already, okay. Only one missile was launched by Iran and was intercepted by Israelis' air defenses, an Israeli official told CNN. Video showed the missile moving through the sky above Jerusalem, and sirens were heard in several areas of the country warning people to enter shelters. People have since been told they can leave shelters. Earlier, state-affiliated Iranian outlet Noor News reported Iran's air defense system was intercepting hostile targets over the capital city of Tehran. Trump spoke with British PM about Middle East on Sunday, Downing Street says. U.S. President Donald Trump spoke with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Sunday evening following the U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear sites that morning, according to Starmer's office. Quote, the leaders discussed the situation in the Middle East and reiterated that the grave risk posed by Iran's nuclear program to international security. The Downing Street statement reads, they discussed the actions taken by the United States last night to reduce the threat and agreed that Iran must never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. Trump and Starmer discussed the, quote, the end of Iran to run negotiating table as soon as possible to make progress on the lasting statement, end quote. The statement continues, adding that the two leaders agreed to stay in, quote, close contact over the coming days. Israel strikes military complex near Tehran, Iran, state-affiliated outlet says. The Israeli military struck Parachin, a large military complex southeast of Tehran, Iran, state-affiliated Noor News reported early Monday local time. And there's a B-12 B-2 bomber returns to U.S. base after dropping bombs on Iranian nuclear sites. A B-2 stealth bomber was seen returning to U.S. base in Missouri after completing Operation Midnight Hammer in Iran. President Donald Trump had posted on social media Sunday evening that the B-2 stealth bomber pilots who were on the mission to Iran had returned safely. Remember, the under-presidented U.S. operation involved 7 stealth B-2 bombers, a tool. All told, more than 125 aircraft were involved, including B-2s, refueling tankers, and reconnaissance plans and fighter jets. About B-2 bombers. They are the only planes capable of carrying a massive ordnance penetrator, which experts have highlighted as the only type of bomb potentially capable of destroying Iran's underground Fordow nuclear facility. Each B-2 bomber is able to carry 2 of these bunker buster bombs, which weigh an impressive 30,000 pounds each. All right. DOJ says Trump has authority for strikes but may need congressional approval if conflict continues. A senior Justice Department official said President Trump in the Constitution with the White House Counsel and the Justice Department conducted the strike against Iran under his article constitutional powers. The president has broad authority to order the use of military force and advance another national interest in under Article 2 of the Constitution, but Article 1 gives Congress the authority to declare war. The official said that the president is also relying on memos written by DOJ's Office of Legal Counsel under the administrations of both parties. Officials say that if the conflict continues for an extended period, the administration may have to go to Congress for approval, but the bombing 3 nuclear sites does not rise to the level of needing congressional approval under Article 1. The official also notes that Trump administration has the support of senior officials in the House and the Senate, so the White House believes it is the only solid legal ground. A White House official told CNN earlier that the president used his legal authority as commander-in-chief to launch the strikes. The official said that the conflict continues for an extended period of time. The administration may have to go to Congress for approval, but the bombing 3 nuclear sites does not rise to the level of needing congressional approval under Article 1. The official also noted that Trump administration had the support of senior officials in the House and the Senate, so the White House believes it had solid legal ground. A White House official told CNN earlier that the president used his legal authority as commander-in-chief to launch the strikes. Another General Pam Bondi will testify tomorrow before the House, where she is expected to be asked about the issues and will reiterate the president's resilience on his Article 2 powers in the previous memos of the Office and Legal Counsel. Iran's air defense system intercepting hostile targets over Tehran, says state affiliate outlet. Iran's air defense system is currently intercepting hostile targets over the capital city of Tehran. State affiliated outlet Noor News reported early Monday local time. Noor News also reported that the hostile targets are being intercepted over the city of Karaj, northwest, and Tehran. Oil prices rise after the U.S. strikes Iranian nuclear facilities. Oil prices surged late Sunday in Wall Street's first reaction to the United States strikes on three Iranian nuclear facilities Saturday evening, a major escalation of the Iran-Israel conflict. U.S. oil futures jumped to 3.6 to about 76.47 per barrel. Brent futures, the global benchmark for oil prices, increased 3.2, hitting to 74.59 per barrel. U.S. stock futures fell in response to the attacks. Dow futures dropped to 250 points, 0.6. The S&P 500 futures fell to 0.6, while the Nasdaq futures tumbled to 0.7%. The U.S. dollar, however, rose to 0.3, an encouraging sign after America's currency had tumbled after the Trump administration put place on historic tariffs on the foreign imports. The dollar, widely referred to as the world's reserve currency, tends to rarely in times of global unease and conflict, but observers questioned whether this would happen again under Trump's America First policies. Silver's going up a little bit more. So that's interesting to see. It went down a little bit, but it's kind of hanging in there. Okay, let's see. All right. U.S. State Department issues worldwide caution alert for Americans after Iran strikes. The U.S. Department of State issued a worldwide security alert on Sunday, advising the U.S. citizens to take caution warning for potential demonstrations against the U.S. citizens and interests abroad. Quote, the conflict between Israel and Iran has resulted in disruptions to travel and periodic closure of airspace across the Middle East. There is potential for demonstrations against the U.S. citizens and interests abroad. The Department of State advises the U.S. citizens worldwide to exercise increased caution, the alert reads. The advisory urges the U.S. citizens to review country-specific information and recent security alerts when planning to travel. The department's website. The alert comes after the Department of Homeland Security warned a heightened threat of environment in the U.S., citing the possibility of low-level cyber attacks and continued potential of lone wolf attacks following the U.S. strike in Iran. Extent of very significant damage at Fordrow from U.S. strikes on Iran yet to be determined, Netanyahu says. The U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facility in Fordrow left it with a very significant damage, according to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but he cautioned the extent of the damage that was still to be determined. Well, we will examine the situation, Netanyahu said, and in any case, we will ensure that there is no threat to the from these nuclear facilities. Multiple massive bunker buster bombs were launched at Fordrow. U.S. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, said at previous news conference that the nuclear facility located near the Iranian city of Qom is built inside the mountain and heavily guarded. Netanyahu said in pre-recorded news conference with several local and international journalists, there were no conditions placed on U.S. bombing operation and that Israel did not have to commit to the end of the war in Gaza in exchange for American bomber targeting Iran's nuclear facilities. President Trump put a didn't put any conditions on this not the nature of our relationship. I have to say that I said, Netanyahu, we speak openly, we speak as friends, genuine friends, and he's a great leader. He makes decisions for America. He added that he was notified at the attack in hand and advanced. That's natural, just as he knew in advance when he would act. We knew in advance he would act, Netanyahu said. He was notified of the attack in advance. That's natural, just as he knew. Okay. Asked by CNN where Iran's stockpiles of 400 kilograms of enriched uranium was, Netanyahu said Israel had when he called interesting and intel about where it may be. Quote, we've been following that very closely, Netanyahu said. I can tell you that it's an important component of nuclear program. It's not the sole component. It's a significant component. But it's an important component. But we have an interesting intel on that with. You'll excuse me if I don't share that with you. In the war in Gaza, Netanyahu also said that the effects to reach a ceasefire in Gaza continue to stress that Israel accepts the proposal put forward by the U.S. to envoy Steve Witkoff. Quote, the contacts are continuing as we speak and all the time. We're obviously focused on Iran, but never forget Gaza. We need to forget our hostages. We never forget our hostages, he said. The operation in Iran is helping to achieve the goal in Gaza, Netanyahu asserted. That he said Iran can no longer support Hamas, which could extend to the military group's demise, comparing the collapse of Hezbollah. Quote, once the that reality sinks into the ranks of Hamas. You're already entering the final phase of decision. He said, "It will take a little time, but there's no doubt that our major achievements in Iran are also contributing to achieving our goals in Gaza." All right, this is from 7 minutes ago. MAGA movement divided over Trump's move to bomb Iran. President Trump's MAGA sphere is conservative media influencers, many of whom expressed skepticism before his decision to bomb Iranian nuclear facilities, is divided over the president's dramatic move to strike. Many of the most prominent figures railed around Trump, but there's a sharply criticized and decision said they want to see more explanation that this brief Saturday night speech are warned of a drawn out conflict. Ahead of Saturday's bombing, the prospects of United States involvement in another Middle Eastern conflict had opened the rifts of the gop. Trump himself had ripped the United States' involvement in the wars in the Middle East as a presidential candidate, and his Make America Great Again movement includes many more isolationist voices aligned with America First vision. Those voices were at odds in recent days with the GOP. Hello, Bina. Well, I should say Beans. It's great to see you, buddy. So, what I'm doing is talking about the news with Iran and Israel and other new stuff. I hope that you're doing good, Beans, and having a good weekend. And supporting Israel in its bid to stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. But afterwards, Trump's Saturday night announcement, some prominent MAGA voices rallied around President, and others, however, expressed skepticism toward any broader mission in Iran. I'm just going through the different things that were reported. Okay. Watch on the ground at Iranian protests against the U.S. attack. Crowds of Iranians gathered in public on Sunday to express anger about the U.S. attack on the three key nuclear sites. CNN's Fred Platigan reports from the protests on the streets of Tehran, where some demonstrators are amplifying their leaders' promise of retaliation. Israel says it struck several military targets across Iran on Sunday. The Israeli military said it struck a number of military targets across Iran on Sunday, the Israeli Air Force struck military satellites and radar sites in the cities of Kermanshah and Hamadin in the western Iran, as well infrastructure sites in Israel Defense Forces statement. In western Iran, as well as strong missile launching infrastructures sites in Israel Defense Forces said in the statement. A surface to air missiles launcher who also struck the Iranian capital of Tehran said. The IDF continues its efforts to degrade military capabilities of the Iranian regime and achieve aerial superiority over Iran airspace in order to protect the state of Israel, IDF said. Bean says Iranian people have been oppressed by their government since the revolution in the 1970s, and women have no rights and get slaughtered for just showing hair on their head. Yeah, and from what I was researching, that the people in the country are not really a bit happy about the country that they're in Iran. And Netanyahu was showing himself as a liberator of the Iranian people. And when I was growing up at the summer camp I went to, that was the say an Israeli theme. The military consisted of men and women, and everybody had to be in the Israeli army. So it was quite different than how Iran is. And I do think that Iran has a violent interpretation and a quite like a very extreme interpretation of their religion to do that. But it doesn't mean that all people that are Muslim are like them. I'm not saying that, but they're using things in their religion to try to justify their actions, which I think that regardless of what religion they believed in, they would have done these things some kind of a way. So yeah, it was in the 70s. You're saying, yeah. So basically, I've learned that Iran had a different regime, and then this other regime came over, and it caused them problems to oppression to their people. So I do think that is absurd to do that. It kind of reminds me of the Taliban, what they're doing over there with the women. And Miranda says, Beans exactly. Hello. Things they're doing to their own children will forever haunt me. Yeah, exactly. Things to children, too. I think that it's extremely, sick, this type of interpretation that they have and the violence they're doing to their people, because we're in the 21st century. We shouldn't be treating people like this. And like these dictators, they'll free themselves, but they'll enslave the people. Yes, Beans, right. Their Iranian people are wonderful, but their government oppresses them. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And and they call America the Great Satan, but that's what they are. They're a Great Satan, you know. And Iran has issues with Saudi Arabia, like I was saying before, so they don't get along with their neighbors too well. And for them to want to build a nuclear weapon of some kind would be very dangerous for the West and for Israel too. And I think that people have to do what they have to do to defend themselves. And as I said, there's one side that's saying that like America is trying to topple over a regime like it usually does, or they're saying how America tries to wants their oil and stuff like that. But as I said, I think in this situation you're having something that's causing harm to their people like that. Because I've been researching Iran for a couple of days now, and seeing like what they're doing, it's not right, So hopefully this can end. And also, Bean says it is very possible that Trump prevented a war by doing this. Exactly, and like what Netanyahu was saying about peace through strength. And there's a time for peace, and there's a time for war. And he was quoting the peace through strength is something that Ronald Reagan originally said. And then these other leaders are now using this type of term. And I think it's important to have that because there could have been a much worse conflict if they were to send a weapon to launch it over and to the United States or to England or Israel or any of these different places. So I think that the people should have a different type of regime that's not pressing them. Yeah. A very good commentary, Beans. Very good points. And also says, remember, Israel traded back and forth strikes with Iran the days leading up to the U.S. strikes on Tehran's nuclear program this weekend. The map below shows some locations of the targets. All right, so this is some locations where the targets are happening. And right here. All right, so we have, these are locations where they have the different strikes going on. Oh, hello, Zoe. It's great to see you. I'm glad you're able to chat with us. Exactly, exactly. And so these are locations where, so the red is where Israel, they did the strikes from Israel, and the yellow is from Iran, is from Israel. No, okay. The red dots is where Israel strikes. U.S. is the yellow ones. And the nuclear facilities are the little boxes. And as I said, I feel that Iran is using the religion that they follow and using things in it to justify their actions. And like I said earlier, it doesn't matter what they would have believed in, because they would have justified what they're trying to do anyway. Like I don't think they believe in religion. I think they want to oppress their people, and they're using their religion as a way to justify it. Because I think if they believed in whatever religion, they would have done this. Because they don't represent the Muslims of the world and stuff. They're just trying to cause oppression to their people and perverting what they believe to justify these things. Oh, you're on break. And as I said, I am very familiar with Israel since growing up. I've known about it for a long time. And Netanyahu for over 30 years was very suspicious that Iran was building a nuclear weapon. And I believe Israel would be at very high sensing, trying to see what's going on because of what happened with October 7th. And I believe they obviously were very convinced that something was going to happen, so they took action. So then Trump did his part, and I think that it's good to have a strong military leader. I agree, Zoe. I do agree. Especially when they get in power like that, like say in the America, you'll have the people who, like, you don't have anybody in power in America that's a religious extremist that are trying to use religion for some sort of a radical cause. But over there in those other countries, they have them in power. So, like, you don't have, like, the KKK in power. You don't have, like, things like that, which that doesn't even really exist that much anymore. But over there in these other countries, you have these religious zealots over there that are trying to, they're in power. That's quite dangerous. Yes. I agree, Zoe, with what you're saying. Very good, chat. And how dare they force everyone to be their religion? It's creepy. Oh, yeah, because I believe that it's wrong to force people to believe in a religion by force. People have to accept it by free will. And I think that it is creepy to... it's like a cult. Like Jim Jones and those type of organizations, those type of cults to try to make everybody their religion. Because, they're not supposed to force people to believe in their religion. They're supposed to do it by free will. And, you'll have, like, say... Like some people, like in Islam, will say Christians and Jews are people of the book, but then you have other people that believe in what Iranians believe to force people to believe what they believe, which I think everybody should have a free will to believe what they want. Regardless of religion. So I think it is very creepy. I do agree. God gave people free will. Yes, Beans, exactly. Right. And Miranda says, did anyone see the leaders of Hamas funeral? They have Air Force One particularly flying over it, and IDF sending clear messages that a day was coming, but they didn't know when or how. I think yes, I saw that. Yeah, yesterday was the day. Hallelujah, we're safe, and here comes Ariana Grande and other stars to create more propaganda. Yeah, the stars, and I was saying the media, but I want to emphasize that social media, I believe, has completely misled people. And social media has completely misled people. And the stars, a lot of these stars, I'll say this with all due, honesty, is that, which I don't care what I offend by what I say, I do not care. But when people are like stars, they don't really know what they're talking about, these stars. So you have these like Ariana Grande trying to go for Trump's impeachment, and then you have a bunch of mindless sheep that go along with it. And I don't think people are really conscientious of what they're even looking at. Like a star says something, they're used as propaganda. And I think it's extremely, you're causing people to be in harm's way. Like I believe with a lot of conspiracy theories, like with the aliens or Planet 10, that could possibly cause people harm if they don't know about it. It's a crime to try to do things like that. And I think with these stars that are advocating for Trump's impeachment over trying to defend the United States is ridiculous. And I'm glad we have a strong leader to defend the country. And Zoe, during one has funerals, the fact it was caught live was crazy. And Miranda says, I really believe that the stars are paid to stand against the truth, but what do I know? I believe you're all right. I think they're just puppets. Like an actor or an actress or a singer is just a puppet in a movie, so why not use them for other propaganda purposes? And Zoe says, can you imagine having the privilege to be an American, but simp for Iran? She and others can go there if they want to support terrorism. Yeah, exactly. I think that it is, especially over in that country, she would not be able to do that over there. Like with the Taliban, for instance, how the women are being treated like cattle over there, and they're covering everything on them. And it was very humiliating how Joe Brandon did that because the Trump was going to have a really good way of getting our presidents out of Afghanistan, but Trump did it. Not Trump, but Joe Brandon did it in a very embarrassing way. And all the people are clinging to an airplane while it's taking off, and the Taliban just comes right back in. As I said, it's just completely disgusting how these regimes, they're defending these regimes, like, or say like people like North Korea that want to blow us up too. You got to be careful here because if these people get this type of weapon, it's not going to be good. And I do think that it would strengthen stereotypes by people that, like Iran. I think they strengthen stereotypes that are harmful to everybody. And I think that these stars supporting it are complete dingbats. They need to go move to Iran if they like it so much. Like, why live in a free country where you have all the rights you can have if you could just go somewhere where you're going to be, by men and women are both oppressed by? And Bean says because Ariana and all others are too uneducated to realize you can't impeach him since he was well within his powers to do so. And I was reading from this article that he constitutionally had the right to do what he did. It was all in the Constitution that he did not break anything, and he has the House and the Senate on his side, so he believed he acted correctly. So these idiots don't know the American civics and the American Constitution. 10 years ago this year, I learned about civics and stuff in school, and I learned about the Constitution and all these things. But they didn't even go to 11th grade. They didn't go to 11th grade. They didn't learn stuff like that. They just lost all their brain cells. There are a bunch of sheen human beings. They're sheen stars. So, like, we'll look at the sky. There's Timu stars and there's sheen stars. Trump's not a stupid man. He has advisors, and he did not violate the Constitution. Exactly. And, he is a businessman, and if people like him or not, he is a businessman. And he would know how to deal with America's like a company, so he acted within his bounds. As I said, you got to bring attention to what they're doing. And I think it is quite horrid what these people would do to us if they had these type of capabilities. That's why even with buying a firearm, people have to go through background checks because not everybody should have, or should have one. Now there are people that unfortunately do get firearms and do things they shouldn't do with them, but that's why they do background checks on people, and there should be background checks for these type of weapons. And they do think we're the great Satan, and they're using verses from the Quran to justify their actions. But as I said, they're just perverting these things from the religion, and they're a different type of Islam than the other Muslims. Like there's Shia and Sunni, and the Shia and Sunni have been having conflict for a while. And as I said, they don't even believe in a religion. They just believe in keeping themselves in power. That's all they really care about. If they would have been anywhere else, they would have used that. Like, say, the Soviet Union was an atheistic state, and they used things from the theories of Karl Marx to justify their atrocious actions. But all they did was oppress people in those countries and treated them like cattle in the same way. Like a totalitarian regime will do anything to justify what they're doing because they enrich themselves. They get all these nice things. Like, say, Castro has like an Adidas jacket on when he was alive, and the leaders have a bunch of nice things, but their people don't really have that. Now, the Cubans are simping for Iran, and they have called out President Trump's actions, and they have been, they're on Iran's side about it, of course, because they're against the Americans. And these different, China thinks that America is doing the same mistake that it did in the Middle East for 20 years, and they're just kind of shocked. They're kind of freaked out. And Russia's like, they're kind of very in an awkward spot. And Putin was saying that there should be a peaceful resolution because Putin's not really against Israel, and Iran's his ally, so it puts him in an awkward position. But and then people are roasting Putin because he caused this war in Ukraine, and then they're fighting over that, and they're saying that he's the last person to talk about making peace with another country. So yeah, the world leaders are reacting, and a lot of people are condemning the Orange Man, but he could have, as Beans said, he could have prevented a much worse conflict. I agree, Zoe. Iran zealots are like 7th century mentality with the 21st century weapons, extremely dangerous. I agree they're dangerous. Because we're not, we're in the 21st century. And basically, this update we have in this update that we're like seeing right here is Iran's Isfahan nuclear complex is heavily damaged. International Security Institute say Iran's Isfahan nuclear complex, one of the 3 targeted in U.S. strikes on Sunday, is in heavily damaged, according to the assessment made by Institute for Science and International Security, a Washington-based nonprofit. The complex main uranium. I will do that, Beans. I will certainly do that. I'm going to say that right now. I'm going to get that right there. Assessment. The complex main uranium conversion facility, which converts natural uranium into the form of uranium, extend gas and centrifuges, was severely damaged, and the Institute said in the assessment. Tunnel entrances leading into the underground complex were also observed to be damaged, with at least 3 of the tunnel entrances having collapsed. The Institute said it has seen the satellite images Friday showing the tunnel entrances being backfired with soil. This is likely precautionary measure to contain an explosion over the prevent disappearance hazards. Hazardous material from the facility. Quote, there may be significant damage to underground complex, the Institute said. The story is still unfolding. All right, we have two new updates right now. And then we're going to get into what Beans wanted me to look up. Zoe says the Iranian spokesperson said today that UN that Trump bombed schools and hospitals, deleting children and women, such as snakes and liars. Bean says it gives him 60 days for military actions before needing approval of Congress. Yeah, that's what happened during, after the Vietnam War. That is what they instituted. And thank you, Beans. And we're going to look it up and go right into it. And you see, Zoe, they say things about women and children to try to invoke an emotion in people. The Iranian spokesperson needs to call out forcing women to wear the head coverings and oppressing their people and perverting the Islamic religion and making themselves look like idiots. In that they want to blow up the United States and Israel, and they're a bunch of evil, satanic, counterfeit people. But they're not going to say that. They're talking about women and children because, remember, the scripture talks about wolves in sheep's clothing, and the devil's like a snake. So that's what they're being. The spirit of Satan is within them, and that's what they're doing because they know their regime is going to collapse at some point, and that's what they're trying to do to hang on to it. And I think that it'll be good when their people are free of these things. And now, 3 minutes ago, Trump to meet with National Security Team tomorrow. President Donald Trump will meet with National Security Team tomorrow afternoon in the Oval Office, according to the schedule released by the White House on Sunday night. He has no public events on schedule. Trump was initially set to travel to the annual NATO summit held in Hangout this year on Monday. He is now slated to leave the meetings on Tuesday. And Zoe said, problem is stupid people in America will believe it. More mostly peaceful protesting coming. Aw, yep. That is true, Zoe. Bean says he kept his word so far. No American lives lost and no boats on the ground. Boots on the ground. I read that wrong. So it's boots, not boats. Boots on the ground. He didn't hit human or military targets. Amen, Zoe. And it's good we have a leader that does that. And he's concerned about the Iranian people. And he's just attacking their government. Limited flights from Israel's main international airport to resume starting Monday. Israel is set to begin limited flights in and out of Ben Gurion International Airport on Monday. The airport authority announced outgoing flights will operate with a maximum of 50 passengers because of new safety protocols. Israel Airports Authority said the statement in Israel's home front command has restricted large gatherings of people and closed non-essential workplaces because the threat of Iranian ballistic missiles. Meanwhile, the IAA will allow approximately 24 incoming flights per day as part of what is called the Safe Run Return operation, as tens of thousands of Israelis remain stranded aboard. These inbound flights are allowed to operate with an increased capacity. The IAA said to resumption of flights, even limited capacity, would mark a significant step towards gradual restoration of routine international travel. All right, let's see what this is. All right. So, the War Powers Resolution requires that the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing armed forces to military action and forbids armed forces from remaining for more than 60 days with a further 30-day withdrawal period without congressional authorization for U.S. military force or declaration of war. What did the War Powers Resolution do in 1973? The War Powers Resolution (WPR), first adopted in 1973 over the veto, President Richard Nixon establishes presidential reporting requirements and preliminary procedures intended to reaffirm the constitutional role of Congress in committing the United States into armed conflict abroad. All right, that's what that does. Why was it passed? The War Powers Resolution 1973 was passed with the intent to reassert Congress's role in committing U.S. armed forces into hostile abroad while still ensuring that the president retains enough flexibility to act when necessary. What promoted Congress to pass the War Powers Act of 1973? It was promoted by news leaking out that President Nixon conducted secret bombings of Cambodia during the Vietnam War without notifying Congress. The War Powers Resolution Bill was contest between Congress and presidency on who has specific rights regarding wartime authorities. Now, Cambodia, it had a communist regime, and there's the Cambodian genocide, and they did a number on a lot of people. They genocided a lot of people, the communists over there. It was really disgraceful. And also, but it's not talked about much, but that's, the Cambodians did a genocide in their own people. It was quite sick, so. But anyway, I'm glad that they passed the War Powers Resolution, and Trump did not do anything wrong. Now, one of the people over here one time was saying that Trump was murdering American citizens. It's like he's not murdering American citizens. Like, it's just these people believe all kinds of stuff. And Zoe said, people's hair on fire once again, but Trump will be proven to be well within his rights to strike. Yeah, he has a right to strike. It is his constitutional right to do that. And there was something over here about it. Let's see. All right, DOG says Trump has authority for strikes, but may need congressional approval if conflict continues. And that's normal, that's constitutional. A senior Justice Department official said that President Trump, in consultation with the White House counsel and the Justice Department, conducted the strikes against Iran under his Article 2 constitutional powers. So it says here that he acted within his counsel and his Justice Department, and he was within his constitutional bounds. The president has broad authority to order the use of military force and to advance other national interests under Article 2 of the Constitution. But Article 1 gives Congress the authority to declare war. You see, because in our country, unlike Iran and the Timu countries and the Sheen countries out there, our country has a balance of power. You have the House, you have the Senate, you have the President, and the people in the Congress are elected by the people. So you have this balance of power, which I learned in school in civics 10 years ago. And also, I was always interested in politics growing up, and it was just something I knew about. But morons that do protesting, and morons that, although peaceful protesting is legal, of course, I disagree with their opinion, but it's their right to peacefully protest. And morons like Ariana Grande did not go to civics like I did, and like what you all did, and they don't understand that the president has powers. Yeah, Timu countries. The Timu and Sheen countries, because you have some Timu countries and you have Sheen, and you have Timu Sheen countries. They're like both of them at the same time. And they don't really, and you have Sheen and Timu protesters, and they they just do whatever they do. Like they just act, right? They just do whatever they do. There's no Congress or Senate. They just act. And but our country, there's a president, and he has power. He's the commander in chief. Oh, Regina, welcome. You came at the right time. Welcome. So, Regina, we are talking about the meltdown that the the left and everybody on the right too. Everybody's having over Trump's strike in Iran, and he was in his constitutional bounds to do it. And we're talking about the Sheen Timu countries that just have dictators that do whatever they do without any kind of consent from anybody. But our country, you have the president that can do strikes, but the Congress has to declare war. You see, you have a balance of power. And the Congress is elected by the people, so is the Senate. Yes, I'm very happy. This is all part of God's plan. Amen. The president has broad authority to order the use of military force and to advance the national interest under Article 2 of the Constitution. But Article 1 gives Congress the authority to declare war. The official said that the president is also relying on memos written by DOJ's Office of Legal Counsel under administration of both parties. The official said that if the conflict continues for an extended period, the administration may have to go to Congress. Bean said, does this mean that the lefties have to buy yet another flag besides their Palestinian and Mexican one? Yep, they have to buy a new flag. Scared. George Soros has to, in my opinion, because they're going to go and say, oh, alien spaceship said something wrong. So in my opinion, George Soros is going to have to buy his puppy dogs a new American flag. Not an American flag, but an Iranian flag. Because they're going to only use... They have some American flags, actually, in their parades. That's what got me thinking of the American flag, because they've been using the American flag. But they're going to have to use a new Iranian flag. George Soros is going to have to buy them, in my opinion, a Iranian flag now. Oh, yeah. So they're going to have to get a new song and new training. The Soy Army and the Soy protesters and the Soy brigades, the Soy warriors are going to have to get a new slogan and a new flag to go march for comfort. Oh, no. See, it's like the protesters are going to... They use American flags, but they also going to use the Iranian flag because that's the one they're going to be crying over. The officials said the president is also relying on memos written by DOJ's Office of Legal Counsel under the administrations of both parties. The officials said that if conflict continues... Oh, okay. OKC wins. Ah, okay. Thank you for the update on sports. Oh, I love sports. I like watching the NBA. Thank you, Eric. And shout out to you, Eric. Thanks for hanging in there. The official said that if the conflict continues for an extended period, the administration may have to go to Congress for approval. But that bombing 3 nuclear sites does not rise to the level of needing congressional approval under Article 1. The official also noted that Trump administration has the support of senior officials in the House. See, the House, the Senate, and the White House believes it is the solid legal ground. Bean says, but not the White House, but their jobs to protect. How are they ever going to get the money? The boomer parents. Hilarious. Exactly. Because they don't work. We watch them all the time at Smoke and Scan, and they just protest all day long. And they're not working at a job or doing anything productive. So they're going to have to go to the boomer parents to get the money. The officials said that the president is also relying on memos written by DOJ's official legal counsel under administrations of both parties. The officials said that if the conflict continues for an extended period, the administration may have to go to Congress for approval. I said that already. A White House official told the CNN earlier that the president issued his legal authority as commander-in-chief to launch the strikes. Attorney General Pam Bondi will testify tomorrow before the House, where she is expected to be asked about this issue. Will reiterate the president's reliance on Article 2 powers and previous memos for Office of Legal Counsel. And let's see what the world leaders' reaction to this is. Shout out to the Spaceship Cats. All right, let's go through this. There are different reactions they have. U.S. forces struck 3 Iranian sites on Sunday, and reactions from around the world range from Israel lauding President Trump's decision for UN calling for a de-escalation in Iran, and some nations condemning the attacks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says, "Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapon." Bean says, "Don't get me wrong, I am against war, but they had it coming since they blew up the Marine Corps barracks in 1983 and deleted 241 Marines." Eric, what I do is my family has these rental properties, and I help my family out with them. So it's like a family business thing. That's the other thing that I do besides YouTube. The Iranian foreign minister reaction is the United States Parliament member of the United Nations Security Council has committed a grave violation of the UN Charter, international law of nuclear this is what the Iranians are saying, non-professional treaty, by attacking Iran's peaceful nuclear installations. The events this morning are outrageous and will have everlasting consequences. Each and every member of the UN must be alarmed over extremely dangerous, lawless, and criminal behavior in accordance to the UN Charter. This provisions, according to the legitimate response and self-defense Iran reserves all options to defend the sovereignty, interests, and people. So Iran and Paris. Rajavi, head of National Council residents of Iran in Paris. The Iranian people welcome the end of the war and seek freedom. Zoe says, speaking of work, I gotta gear back. Breaks almost over. Great convo. Good night, all of you beautiful people. Thanks, Alien, for another great stream. Pray for Israel. Amen. And our troops and our president. Amen. Thank you, Zoe, for being here. Always a pleasure having you. Bean says, don't get me wrong. I am against war, but they had this coming since they blew up the Marine Corps barracks in 1983 and deleted 241 Marines. Yeah, Beans, we can't be doing stuff like that because America will retaliate because we are a strong nation and we have a strong leader now. And also I hope and pray the Iranian people can be liberated from this nightmare that they're governed under. Amen. All right, Kamali is responsible for the unpatriotic project that, in addition, countless lives, has cost the Iranian people at least $2 trillion, and now it has gone up in smoke. With tensions in the Middle East and a new peak of stability must be a priority, and respect for international law is critical. French Foreign Minister Jean Noël said on X, France is convinced that a lasting resolution to the issue requires a negotiated solution with the framework of the non-proliferation treaty. And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Iran's nuclear program is a grave threat to the international security of Iran, can never be allowed to develop nuclear weapon, and the U.S. has taken action to alleviate that the threat and the situation in the Middle East remains volatile. No, yeah, that's the right word. And stability in the region as a priority as we call on Iran to return to negotiating table and return to diplomatic solution to the crisis. Bean says, amen. Shout out to the Iranian people who have been suffering for decades. Amen. Amen. Prayers for the Iranian people too. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. This is a dangerous escalation in the region already on the edge and a direct threat to the international peace and security. There is growing risk that this conflict could rapidly get out of control with catastrophic consequences for civilizations and region in the world. I call the member of states to de-escalate and uphold their obligations under the UN Charter and other rules, international law. The United Arab Emirates expressed its deep concern over the ongoing tension in the region and the targeting of Iranian facilities. It called for immediate end to escalation to avoid dangerous repercussions and slide into new levels of instability. The foreign minister urges the United Nations Secretary Council to assume that their responsibilities by working diligently to resolve the chronic issue in the region, which is now at stake, to pose the growing threat to the regional international security and stability. Now, Saudi Arabia, they don't want the Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Like the Crown Prince was saying that. I saw like a couple months ago, if they got one that they would want one too because they didn't really trust Iran because Iran has problems with Saudi Arabia. And I could see why the people there are concerned about this escalating. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. But prayers for everybody involved in this because it is getting quite graphic, for everybody. Because it's going to be interesting how this ends. It's going to be interesting. The state of Qatar regrets the deterioration of the situation, the deterioration of the situation following the bombing of Iran nuclear facilities, and is following with great concern that the developments of following the recent attacks to its sisterly Islamic Republic of Iran targeting its nuclear facilities. The Minister of Foreign Affairs warns the dangerous tensions currently witnessed in the region will lead to catastrophic repercussions in the regional international level. Now, you see, they're concerned about it because, this is going to escalate and they're going to be concerned about what's going to do to their people. And, if people that are right next to it, I would be kind of freaked out too. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs warns that the dangerous tension currently witnessed in the region will lead to catastrophic repercussions at the regional international levels. Japanese Prime Minister says, it is crucial that there be a quick de-escalation to the conflict. We are closely monitoring the situation there with grave concern. You see, everybody wants Iran to go to the table to have diplomatic discussions about resolving this. But, they're not going to do that. And America is not really happy with how the situation is going. Neither is, Israel. So the action has been taken. The Italian Foreign Minister Antonio, a state broadcaster, Rai, said, "Now, we hope that after this attack, which caused massive damage to nuclear weapons production and posed a threat to the entire region, to de-escalation can begin. The Iran can sit down to negotiating table." New Zealand Foreign Minister Winston Peters. We acknowledge the developments of the 24 hours, including President Trump's announcement of the U.S. strikes on nuclear facilities in Iran. Ongoing military actions in the Middle East are extremely worrying and is crucial. Further escalation is avoided. New Zealand strongly supports efforts towards diplomacy. We urge all parties to return to talks. Diplomacy will deliver more enduring resolution to military action. I agree, Beans, that the government of Iran needs to change. Yeah, I agree. And, they are poorly representing the religion they claim to follow, which I think they're, perverting it. They're not really following it. And it needs a change, and the people there need to have more of a free country, and to, where the women, people could be Muslims, but they don't have to be treated the way their government is treating them. And I think that it should be better for everybody to have a free place over there. So yeah, I could see why they want to have a regime change in this situation. Australian government spokesperson statement. We have been clear that Iran's nuclear and ballistic program has been a threat to international peace and security. We note the U.S. President's statement is now that time for peace. The security situation in the region is highly volatile, and we continue to call de-escalation, dialogue, diplomacy. Mexican Foreign Ministry, the Mexican government is run by the cartels, in my opinion. They're not anybody. Like, the president's nothing. They're just a bunch of cartels. There's no freedom over there. Ministry urgently calls diplomatic dialogue for peace between parties involving in the Middle East conflict, in keeping with the constitutional principles of foreign policy and our country's pacifist conviction. We retire our call to de-escalation tensions in the region. Shout out to Mary Toodles. Venezuelan foreign minister on Telegram. Venezuela. Yeah, right on beans. Venezuela condemns U.S. military aggression against Iran. Venezuela is a joke. I mean, it's a practical joke. I'm laughing. Venezuela. The people can't have toilet paper or anything, allegedly. And Venezuela has the nuts that they don't have to condemn the U.S. military aggression against Iran and demands the immediate cessation of hostilities in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, firmly and categorically condemns the bombing carried out by United States military against nuclear facilities in Iran. The Cuban president Miguel Diaz says, "We strongly condemn U.S. bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities, which constitutes dangerous escalation in a conflict in the Middle East. And the aggression seriously violates UN Charter, international law, and plunges humanity into crisis and consequences." You know, and these people are supposed to be communists. When the communists think that for rights of women and rights of everybody and for a utopia that never happens because they just take everybody's stuff. But you see what they're doing is it has to be socialistic or something like that. I'll look it up. All right, let's see. The Communist Party of Venezuela is a communist party in Venezuela, but what kind of government is it? Government. Venezuela is a federal president republic. The chief executive president of Venezuela is both head of state and is it socialist? Is Venezuela socialist at least? Socialist. It's an authoritarian dictatorship. A federal presidential republic under an authoritarian dictatorship. And so what's their ruling party? The governing party of Venezuela is the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, partially recognized by 60 countries, including the United States and Europe. You see, the socialists are saying that they believe in utopia and they believe that everybody will be equal. Well, they don't do that. So they should support that this liberation of the oppressed people in Venezuela, in Iran, they should support the oppressed people being liberated, but they don't, because they're an oppressive government, and they're for another oppressive government. As I said, Iran to me is similar to the Taliban. And so those, and also China was condemning it. Well, not condemning, but they're very concerned about it. See, China response. It says that China's response to Iran conflict more concerning if West loses versus the retribution for defeating its Tehran ally. China's clout in the Middle East has not been strong as Beijing thinks Iran as a terror sanctioning regime. One of the CCP's closer allies facing potential end, the experts at Fox Digital say. China does, however, remain a major factor in Iran's emergency market, which otherwise sanctioned by the U.S., much of the West, according to Steve Yatz, a senior fellow Asian Studies Security Policy in the Conservative Heritage Foundation. Quote, Iran has been a particular partner in the event, and China has shielded Iran from sanctions imposed by the United States and its allies for decades, and usually is out of proliferation concerns of occasional for other reasons, Yatz said, and has advised the U.S. officials a nation or security matters. And China has always been a weak spot and viable to the sanctions because China would continue to sometimes openly, obviously, and other times quietly clandestinely to continue the energy market flowing to Iran. Let's see. Kind of like in hot water. So they're very China is very concerned about the conflict and how it can escalate. And let's see over here, we got this toolbar and yeah, so China does a lot of trade with Iran, but they also do trade with the United States, so it puts them in a spot. All right, so here we go. So China condemns the U.S. airstrike, though state media warning Washington may be repeating past strategic mistakes. China condemns the U.S. airstrikes, and those state media warning Washington may be repeating past strategic mistakes. A flash commentary CGTN foreign language arm of China's state broadcaster described the U.S. actions as dangerous turning point. History has repeatedly shown that U.S. military involvement in the Middle East is often unintentioned in consequences, including prolonged conflicts and regional destabilization. The commentary stated that referring to 2003 Iraq War, it said a measured diplomatic approach that prioritizes dialogue over military confrontation offers the best hope for stability in the Middle East. Pakistan condemned the United States airstrike on Iran nuclear sites, warning the risk of a wider escalation in West Asia. So the reason why they're condemning it because they're concerned it's going to cause them a problem. And the state came to a day after Istanbul publicly endorsed Donald Trump as candidate for Nobel Peace Prize. So they endorsed him for Nobel Peace Prize, but they just are worried that it's going to cause their region problems. Like, I think the reason that Saudi Arabia and Qatar are concerned, they don't want problems in their region, but because Iran's going to want to attack the other countries too. Oh, hello, Gregatron. My night is fine. My night is fine. Yeah, China won't get involved. And let's see what our boy Putin thinks. Our brother Putin thinks. Let's see what Putin. Yeah, China will not get involved, though. I agree. All right, so we say Putin's earlier remarks hint that Russia's stand on strikes in Iran. Russia is dealing with its own war in Ukraine, which complicates any potential involvement in the Middle East conflict. U.S. entered in 21 of June. Russia's foreign ministry issued a statement announcing that U.S. attack as a violation of international law, but Kremlin has been more muted so far. A spokesperson said that Putin had no immediate plans to contact President Trump. That said, we do have a sense of President Putin's thinking on the issue. In fact, Friday, I was St. Petersburg for a speech by Putin, where he was later asked about Iran-Israel conflict, and he really played it down the middle. Putin defended Iran's right to what he called a peaceful atom, in other words, civilian nuclear energy program, and he said Israel had a right to guarantee its own security. Because Putin is not against Israel. He's, and he even his campaign in Ukraine, he claims, had to do with neo-Nazis attacking people in Ukraine, which I think it's also more than just that, but he's not against Israel. And also, Iran's his partner, so it puts him in a spot. It's kind of like if you have two friends that are fighting and you're just kind of like cringing there. That's kind of like what he's like. Now, that's not exactly new. Putin had been offered to help the U.S. with Iranian negotiations, really part of a wider effort to engage the Trump administration. Trump, in fact, said no thanks, telling Putin to first focus on ending the war in Ukraine. Since then, Putin has somewhat switched gears. In fact, Friday, Putin that Russia wasn't looking to mediate, but instead offer ideas that might help the conflict from spreading into something that could be World War III. And also about my point earlier, it says, about the conflict where people might say that, which I was saying a couple of times in the stream, that they'll say, like, it's an attack between the Muslims and the Israelis, but it's not really the case because in Israel itself, there are Muslims that live there and that are active in their armed forces and stuff like that. And like for instance, officially, Arab citizens of Israel have legal rights and status and equal to all other Israeli citizens. They have Israeli identity cards and passports and are eligible to vote, run in local national elections, and pay taxes and have freedom of movement within Israel. And they're also in their military, along with other minority groups, including Christians and stuff like that. And like I never really got that off from them about that. They just want to like preserve their country, because I feel that people like in the media and like social media and stuff might get that mixed up, and it's more of a the country of Iran versus the country of Israel versus these other things. And I do think that Iran is like the Taliban, and they pervert the religion that they claim to follow, and that doesn't mean that all people that are Muslim are like that. But those individuals, like the Taliban in Iran, they pervert it and like misinterpret it and just follow what they want to follow in it, which really is not following it at all. And like with communism, people just followed it to do their own genocide and stuff like that. So they just want to justify what they're going to do. Also, even some Christians in the past have, in the church history and different groups have interpreted Christianity a certain way to do things they want to do. And also, like people like, as I said, Iran's like a cult, like Jim Jones with Jonestown, where they just use Christianity, and also he believed in communism too, as a justification for their actions. And a lot of times people will be turned off by religion because of people like Iran. But as I said, the people that are doing that, they're just wanting to stay in power, and they're just doing what they can to stay in power. And there's different types of Islamic practices, like we'll say, like the and then there's like Sunni and Shia Islam, the two largest branches of Islam. And then the Shia Islam is about 90% of Iranians practice Shiism. It is the official religion of Iran. By contrast, most Arab states in the Middle East are predominantly Sunni. Similar, like the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church, like you have some that believe in the Pope, and you have some people that don't believe in the Pope. And so there's different, in Islam, there's different groups in there that believe different things. All right. So those are the different updates about it. And let's see if anything new came out about this war. See anything new? All right. Come on. All right. Okay, we got some updates. We have two new updates since we left it last. All right. First of all, Majority Taylor Green, Majority Taylor Green criticizes Trump's decision to bomb Iran nuclear facilities, and I'm sure she's surprised it wasn't a. And also, and Bean says, but they all believe in the same book, and the book tells them to hurt non-believers and such. And I understand what you're saying, Beans, and I just not all Muslims interpret it that way, and like not all Muslims follow that, and also they will, for instance, like there's some verses that talk about if they hurt or delete a person, it's as if they hurt all of humanity. So it just depends how people interpret it. I hear what you're saying, and there are verses like that in there, but now Muslims at least interpret it that way. And also, Measure Taylor Green criticizes Trump's decision to bomb Iranian nuclear facilities. The Republican representative, Majority Taylor Green, a staunch Trump ally, criticizes that the president's decision to bomb Iranian nuclear facilities. And yes, I know you did, Beans. I know. And I believe you would know more about it than I do. And understood. And also, I knew that you grew up in it. But I do want to make myself clear here that there are those verses in there that you're referring to, Beans, that they follow, and some other ones don't follow it. So, yeah, that was my point. But thank you for your commentary on that. Commentary about that. All right. So, Taylor Green is turning on Trump. A staunch Trump ally criticized the president's decision to bomb Iranian nuclear facilities, writing in a statement on X Saturday night that there would not be bombs. Yeah, facts means. There would not be bombs falling on the people of Israel if Netanyahu had not dropped bombs on people in Iran first. Israel is a nuclear armed nation. That is not our fight. Peace is the answer. You see, Beans, that a lot of people are turning on Trump right now that were originally on his side. And she doesn't seem to understand about the regime change. And she's very vocal, and I'm sure she's surprised that there weren't Jewish space lasers that did this. I'm sure that's something her biggest question. But basically, the regime change might be important for the people to be more free over there. And if they were trying to build a nuclear weapon, I guess it was good that they took it out, whatever that was there. So now she's turning against him. And, so the clown show continues. Green's comments highlight the divide within Trump's MAGA movement between those who have rallied behind the president and those who have voiced skepticism toward the greater U.S. involvement in the conflict. Limit. I'm glad, Beans, that you're still trusting him. Limited flights from Israel's main international airport to resume starting on Monday, which we talked about that before. All right. Yeah, so it looks like she's turning against him. Now, and people I see on Twitter, which I'm sure you also in Beans see on Twitter, that a lot of people are upset with the Orange Man, and people are saying that he's sucking the uh, up to the Jews and things like that. But as I said, I think that a lot of this, a lot of anti-Semitism's coming up, like it's resurfacing, and people are not really understanding the point here. is that it's not a thing to do with the Jewish people. It's just this country is threatening the West and then threatening Israel too, because they clearly say that they don't like Israel and they don't like the West, and it's like they're building these nuclear things and they gotta react to try to defend themselves. That's how us in the West, us defending ourselves. And as I said, I am glad that Trump is a strong leader that is dealing with this. Now I've heard both sides about this, and yeah, I do think that this group of people over there is not too nice. And Twitter is a kind of, you have a bunch of clowns over there, and people are turning on Trump beans. People are turning on him, but I'm glad you aren't. And I've supported him the whole way through. Whatever his decision he thinks is best for the country. And people think like they could just tell the president what to do. But we elected him to see if him to just protect the country and do what's right for the country. And these people clearly have interpreted the violent verses of the religion to act on it. And it's like you're having a dangerous person in the backyard. You got to do something about it. And then you have all these different countries that are concerned, obviously, because this is going to heat up. And I believe it'll escalate, and we're going to see how it ends. It reminds me of when Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein were taken out. So it's something another thing that's happening. Now, one of Obama's Secretary of Defense, the former Secretary of Defense, was defending what Trump did, that he did what he had to do. And it is good for America to show strength and to not be against, the allies that it has in the region. Because, if you had the cackling witch in there, we'd probably be in trouble. I'm scared. Let's see. So that is the updates for now about the war in the Middle East with Iran and Israel. And remember, everybody, the cities of the United States are on keen alert, or on high alert. And they are very concerned about what may happen. If they're going to try to do an attack on us through terrorism or domestic or foreign, whatever's going to happen is going to be we're in very touchy times right now. Kind of like in World War II, where they're going to bomb London. It seems like we're in a quite perilous situation. But of course, trusting in God and what we can control, what we can't control, I think that is very important to consider as well. To watch out for what God has in store and to trust in Him. And it's important to trust the president for him to do his job, and he has advisors and people working with him. Yeah. So that's also something to keep in mind about it. And that is the update about the wars in Iran. All right. So, okay, everybody. So that is all I have to say for this live stream. Thank you all for coming here and saying your commentary. And all opinions are welcome, whatever people think. It's just an open discussion, debate, as we usually do on the channel. And I appreciate every single one of you. Have a great rest of your week and a great evening. Peace.